And this is?
Susie Sims-Fletcher.
This is the very first, this is the inaugural voyage of a new storytelling series that we're going to be hosting here. And Amanda has generously donated the space. So we all get to enjoy this, a fire, and a New England afternoon. And so we've got 4 wonderful storytellers on for you today.
First one will be H.R. Britton.
Me. The second one will be Susie Sims-Fletcher. We've got Rowan Mead, and we also have Nora Dooley. Plus we have Todd Brunel.
We also want to give you the opportunity to tell your story. We're going to have a magic hat, if you will, that you can put your name in and have an opportunity to come up and tell us one of your stories.
Did you bring a hat?
We will be getting the hat.
We'll find a hat.
In a moment.
Okay.
I do in fact have a hat.
All right.
It's just in the other room.
Okay. So we'll have an opportunity for pluck your name out of the hat if you've got a story to tell, especially like 3-5 minute story about life in New England, and then you can it'll be like like sitting around the fire telling stories. So great, I think we'll get cooking.
And with that, our friend H.R. Britton,
who
what?
Cell phones, right?
Oh yeah,
You got the
yes.
cell phones. There we go.
Sorry,
The best cell phone turn-off warning that I ever heard was at was it at Shakespeare in the Park? They actually started very quietly different cell phone rings that everybody's got, like the different rings, and everybody's suddenly, but they were playing it over the loudspeaker. And they played every make of cell phone ring, and everyone thought it was their phone. So
touching yourselves, reaching for it. We will have a little break, by the way, in between, after our third teller, so that if you need to refresh yourself with wine and go to the bathroom and things like that, you won't have to walk out in the middle of something.
And we'll have a break maybe right before the magic hat.
That's exactly when it is.
That's exactly it.
Perfect.
So, all right. So
Perfect.
then you'll have an opportunity. Then that's when we'll pass the magic hat.
So our friend HR is going to go first. He's recently relocated, or located, to New England, and he's been active running his own series of storytelling series in the Lower East Side Stories at the Tenement Museum there, which had a 2-year very successful run, as well as participating in many storytelling circuit events around New York. And so we're very happy to have him and his talents up here. And with that, H.R. Britton.
Thanks, everybody. So I was musing, I didn't grow up in New England, and I was musing over what brought me to New England, and I was thinking about roots, and different kinds of roots that brought me to England. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Wisconsin. I spent a lot of time in New York. And in terms of roots, if you'd had the opportunity to ask my rather eccentric grandmother about our roots, the roots would have been, she would have been more than happy to tell you that one of our ancestors came over on the Mayflower, of course. I have a particular pet theory that if you actually added up the number of people who supposedly came on the Mayflower, it would actually add up to just about the same number of people who actually attended Woodstock. A lot of people apparently. It must have been a very big boat. Apparently also I was doing a genealogy. One of our ancestors was a governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Okay, so those are my New England roots. I remember when I was 7, up on a family trip out from Wisconsin on the East Coast, and it's me, I'm 7, my sister's 9, we're in the back seat of the car, and my mom and my grandmother are driving around Boston. And I couldn't really be bothered. At age 7, architecture is not really something that scratches that creative part of my brain. I'm not that enthralled. What I'm really enthralled with is the Mad Libs that my sister and I have in the back seat, filling in the adjectives and the adverbs. And my mom and my grandmother were sort of pulling out their hair because we're laughing uproariously in the back seat while they're sort of waxing and waning this strange melancholy yearning as we drive around Beacon Hill. I imagine that they were looking for some ancestral home. Somehow got lost in the family docket of our family treasures. So those are my New England roots. Like I said, I grew up in Wisconsin, and the different kind of roots that brought me here are vegetable roots, or the trade routes that brought vegetables around the world. Why do potatoes end up in India when they started in Peru? Why did coffee end up in South America? Why is chocolate grown in Africa? Those kind of roots. Exactly 20 years ago, I was actually entering a class at the University of Wisconsin in the botany department. It was ethnobotany. The title of the course was the rather laughable title, Plants and Man, And there was a very eccentric, slightly boozy Englishman who taught the class, and he gesticulated wildly as he talked about the Roman Empire and the proper treatment of olive oil and garlic and the proper cooking methods, and he made tea in class at one point, talking about the different types of trade that went through, and at one point he was imitating a whale on stage, and he actually got up on the podium and used his legs as the back flippers of a whale. He was a real nutcase, really. And at the end of the course, he gave us the option to either write a 7-page term paper. At that point I was kind of bored with writing term papers. Or we could sing 3 songs at a coffee house at his home that he would arrange, and people would come and sing 3 ethno-botanically related songs at a coffee house at his home. So armed with my old guitar and a song about cigarettes by the Kinks, a folk song from Scotland about whiskey, and sort of a peasant uprising agriculturalist song called the Cuddy Wren, I went to this coffee house, and a bunch of my fellow students were there. And I sang my song, Harry Rag, we'll do any of it, the cigarettes and the, oh, hoagie of ale and a pig like me and a dainty wee crappy of whiskey, and then all those songs. And then there was this crystallizing moment in the night as everybody cycled through the little song cycle, and there was a young, very beautiful woman with long, honey brown hair, and she played the harp. And she played the harp so beautifully, and the way that she sang was so heart-achingly beautiful. It was like this crystalline moment. And I talked to her at the end of this evening while we're mingling around, taking the scraps of meat off of the turkey that someone had cooked and picking the hors d'oeuvres clean and getting a little bit of beer in. And that is a moment that I will never, ever forget. And the following year, we bumped into each other on the library mall at the school, and we began to hang out. Now, I am not a rushing man when it comes to romance. I take my time. I have been described as a foot dragger, so we spent a lot of time at the coffee house, talking, going to the film societies at school when the film society was still projecting 16mm films in some lecture hall, walking by the lake. And one night she drove me home to the dorm in her little white Japanese car, and we stopped, and I was in no hurry to go back into the dorm, and stood up out of the car. Very distinctly I remember that we are by the front passenger's door. The moon is bright, the sky is very, very dark, there's a warmth in the air and sort of a sweet sort of energy bubbling up. And right before I said goodbye, I leaned in and I kissed her. And I won't ever forget how soft and how sweet that was. And it is that kiss, and many like it, that set me on the path, circuitous as it has been, 20 years, that landed me in New England. Thank you. And next, I would like to bring up my dear friend Susie Sims-Fletcher. Put it together. She is a fantastic lecturer, and she's a storyteller extraordinaire, and she's got many, many talents, which she will unfold before you today.